Hey everyone, today we're going to look at how to render out CG cloud particles from Maya and how to comp it together with certain other CG elements to make a shot. So using this shot as reference, these CG ships are flying through the clouds and there's just a camera pan shot. So I'll be going through the techniques that I went through in order to pull this off. So let's go. Now we're in Maya and we're looking at a little particle cloud here, and just briefly going through what this is made up of. This isn't a preset, this is a software rendered particle cloud. Now if you go render it out, it'll look something like that. You've got one of them at the moment, and if you want a whole cloud of them, you can just copy the clouds and make the whole screen full of clouds. But there's a million problems that start when you start doing stuff like that. So say for example you have that frame and you render it, it'll probably look like something like that, which is more like just marshmallows or some sort of globby glue. Just it's not clouds, and you can't really use that. Now there's certain ways I tried to go around that. If you go to the render layers, I decided that I'll try to render out and comp it together within Maya. So if you put individual cloud on individual layer, and if you go to options and you go to render all layers and you go to option box and you go to composite layers and you go OK, and you make sure that these red arrows, recycle looking arrows, are set to red, it'll comp it together, as in it'll render out individual frames and then put them on top of each other, and you can change it the way it's comped together using the render layer option box or whatever it's called. So if you put it to screen, which is probably the most non-destructive one that I've counted, and you render it together, it'll look something like that. And it's an improvement in some ways to that, but you have all these aliasing. Now I tried for a long time to try to reduce that, but when you're dealing with 100 layers, even if it's 1% aliased, when you combine them together it seems to don't work. So I go, okay, let's just not do that. Let's render out one of these layers probably 100 times and comp it together in After Effects. So yeah, we're going to run over to After Effects and see what the result of doing that is. Okay, now in After Effects, you can go to import your files. So if you go to File, Import Files, and you go to one of your layers that you've rendered out, see if you've got 100 layers, you would have rendered out 100 layers. So you go to one, you go to Import, and you go Open. Now you get this interpret footage. I seem to go to pre-multiplied, matte with color with this sort of stuff because it seems to work. So if you go OK, and then you import them to the site, and you drag all of these onto your project, and you actually set every single one of these, the blending mode, to screen. Screen seems to work for this case, but other ones like light and overlay, they seem to work for certain cases and probably be visited later on when we do the next sections for comping for this. And then you do probably a little bit of tweaking with, you give every one of them say some sort of brightness and contrast, and you just tweak it to get a little bit of it. If you do something very simple where you go and grab a sky, where are we? Sky, turn it on, and if we just put it by itself, and if you just put that at the back, for starters, brings life into it. For starters, it actually puts clouds in it, so you can do color correction to actual clouds. That seems to be quite handy. Now, but it doesn't actually end here. Turn that off, and you turn sky off. Also, one thing, when you're actually rendering out of Maya, make sure that it's like in TIFF, so you can actually use the alpha channel, because there's no use rendering out as a JPEG or something with no alpha channel will just be too messy. And also when you're comping, try to look out for any sort of aliasing within the actual clouds, because you don't want to get any comp problems and pre-multiplication and all that jazz. So if you export this out of After Effects, so it's only one file, so it's not taking up so much RAM, you can actually bring that out of After Effects and import it to Fusion just as a single sequence. And let's see what we can do when we bring this from After Effects into Fusion. We're inside Fusion now, and we've imported the export After Effects renders, and what's awesome is that it's now real time. None of this waiting 10 years for the actually update. And if you add a brightness contrast, it looks the same as as it is in After Effects. So yeah, that's cool. And the way that I actually tried to go through getting the clouds to look more cloud-like was to actually just keep adding the actual rendered out After Effects cloud on top of each other with slight variations. Say if you've got the cloud and you just scale it up a little bit, maybe this time I did nothing to it, just to give it a little bit more volume to it, And then this one was maybe just a light, the apply mode was lightened to actually change the actual look, and maybe I've transformed it up and transformed it, scaled it a little bit differently, and done certain things to it. Another thing that I really love with Fusion is the color corrector tool. So color corrector tool comes in multiple flavors. You can actually color correct the actual shadows, the midtones, the highlights, each with certain contrast, settings and gain settings, brightness settings. I find it really easy to work with, so that was pretty cool. Another thing that I'm a huge fan with Fusion is the white balance. So if you wanted to make it more dusk-like, or say if you felt the need to actually make it more, say, make it more blue, maybe you can just play with these sliders to make it very blue. Make it, maybe you're making anime clouds, or you're making some sort of saturated purpley purpley, yeah, you can play around with that and get some really cool effects. So if I undo all them, redo that one, and if I just connect the actual ships up, and just go clonk in there. Now the ships should be comped better, but really in this we're not really concentrating on how the ships are being comped. So yeah, that's probably for a later time. Probably one thing that's probably needed in this to make it better was to actually render more clouds out where it starts, and when at the side, actually render more clouds at the side to actually give it a little bit more, density. More clouds equals better, I suppose, when you're actually doing clouds. So yeah, that's going through the comp of this shot. So yeah, hopefully you had fun. Hopefully it was cool.